As a Critics' Choice member, I was invited to a very swank award screening for Wonka at Warner Brothers headquarters here in New York City. And I chuckled to myself as I clicked accept that Warner Brothers felt Wonka was an awards contender at all. But at least I'd be seeing the movie in style. And, sure enough, they gave us lots of candy. And I sat down and, again, I was like, at least I'm watching it in style and at least I'm eating good. But it was a visual feast as well. It was an incredible film. I couldn't believe how good it was. It is, in fact, shocking to me that Warner Brothers has presented this film so poorly, not just as an awards contender, but for the general public, to try and get you to buy a ticket to see it in theaters. Maybe it'll blow up on Max. Man, it's so good. And I think no one will probably ever know it. But I'm going to do my best here to get it across what's going on here. And wow, what a 180 from my trailer reaction. Yes, like many of you, I thought the trailer was just awful. Not even just meh, awful. I was like, Timothee Chalamet is miscast as Wonka. This film is cringe personified. So again, imagine my surprise when I was like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I plan to vote for it in several categories for the Critics' Choice Awards to try and get it nominated. And I think it has, I don't know, let's see. There seems to be a disconnect between initial reactions on social media and the actual critic score. But not with mine. I always review what I tweet. But I think it's just charming, just absolutely charming. But I don't know if everyone's even going to agree with me, because here's the thing, a little bit of business in here, because it's such an injustice and such a shame. All right, so the movie reminds me of not just the Paddington films, it's the same writer-director, but also Hugo. Now, to be clear, I did not care for Hugo. I know some of you loved Hugo, but I did not. And I mention it only because the films are so similar stylistically. Also, they both involve a police captain. But Wonka is so much more fun than Hugo. I think it's a far, far better film than Hugo, but it did remind me of it a little bit, so I wanted to mention it. However, Hugo and both Paddington movies did not do well at the box office. Really not well. So Paul King might have directed both Paddington films and gotten very good reviews. In fact, for a few years, until one critic messed it up, Paddington 2 had 100%. It was one of the few movies to have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. But considering how low the box office was for both Paddington movies, was King really the right guy to hire for Wonka? If you make a gorgeous, fantastic movie and nobody sees it, does it really matter? And I know some of you will take great offense at that statement, but when you're making a movie at this scale with a beloved franchise and IP for a studio, people, the point is that people see it. That's the main goal. Not just to make a great movie to gather dust in Warner Brothers, storage unit. So also Timothee Chalamet might be really big on social media, but his box office numbers have not been great either. Warner Brothers is all in on Timothee Chalamet. He's in their Dune movies. And, Dune didn't do that hot. You could say it was a pandemic movie, but I think we're all kind of nervous about Dune too. So as much as I personally love Wonka, give me a W, give me an O, give me an N, give me a K, give me an A. What's that spell? Wonka! But, I might be cheering by myself here. I'm preparing myself for a box office dud. The most I can hope for, I think, with a $125 million budget, is that maybe the movie breaks even. Oh, I'm nervous. I'd be thrilled if Wonka turned into The Greatest Showman, right? Some of you also said when I tweeted how good it was, maybe an Encanto that finds its audience on streaming. The songs aren't good enough to be a Greatest Showman or an Encanto. I think the music really pushed those two. The songs are good. I'll just tell you right now, I don't remember a single one of them or what any one of them was called or the lyrics, but I do love the musical numbers. I have a whole section dedicated to that. We're getting ahead of me. I'm getting ahead of myself. But The Greatest Showman in theaters before it got to digital. The Greatest Showman became, because that was before the pandemic, that was a surprise hit a few holiday seasons ago when everybody discovered it. Everybody was like, wow, this movie's great. I discovered that movie. I was tapping my feet when I went to see it in iPic, where you're in a recliner, and I was literally dancing in my seat. I love that. And the music there was incredible. I own that soundtrack. I listen to it to this day. But as I said, the songs here are not that good. However, I did have as good a time in the theater. I was dancing as well. And it was that big of a 180 from what I expected going in to how I felt coming out. I was like, wow, that was incredible. And I thought it was going to be poop. It was so good. But yeah, so when you go to see Wonka, you'll probably be like one of the only few people in the theater. But don't let that stop you. Wonka deserves to be seen, I think, in theaters because it's coming out during the holiday. Everybody needs a holiday movie, and I'm telling you, this is it. It is quite the holiday confection. Whoever dreamed up and materialized the Wonka chocolates in the movie did an exceptional job. I was like, why can I not buy these? I want them now. I mean, obviously, it would be prohibitively expensive to create them, to mass produce such detailed chocolates. But I would take like a more factory worthy, amalgam or whatever, something just that was like had Wonka written on it, and that was like, oh, I feel like I'm in the movie. Marketing. It's not that hard, Warner Brothers, but it is expensive. I've actually bought tickets to see it again, even though I've already seen it. I want to see it on a premium screen. I mean, the Warner Brothers screening room here in New York City is very nice. It's the size of a regular movie theater. It's gorgeous. And it has very good it's big screen, great sound, fantastic seats. But I want to see it on a premium screen. So I have tickets to see it. I want to go with my fam. I want to go. I'm very excited. So it opens in theaters on December 15th. And if you do decide to see it, make it a party. You've got to have chocolate while you watch the movie, or any candy will do. And if there's a fun, playful restaurant you can go to before or after, I'd be sure to add that to the mix as well. You can also do something creative at home, like, in the kitchen, like make ice cream sundaes or make pizza, but then that's also an argument to wait for digital or streaming, and that's not going to help this movie. But I definitely think I think the more fun that you make out of it, the better of a time you will have. And I didn't make a ton of fun out of it. I mean, I got some nice snacks, so that put me in a good mood going into the theater. But I still had an amazing time. But I think you could have an even better time if you themed it. Do the work Warner Brothers will not do, their marketing department. Another movie Wonka reminds me of is Mary Poppins. So much so that I am almost sure that Paul King intentionally decided to make his Wonka a male version of Mary Poppins. There are just too many similarities. Mary Poppins has her bottomless bag. Wonka has a bottomless hat. They both take kids on late-night excursions over city rooftops and introduce kids and adults to fantastic worlds, all while also teaching them valuable life lessons. I thought that was great. Now, Walt Disney made Mary Poppins a smash hit, both at the Oscars and at the box office. But again, the songs were better there. And Disney had Dick Van Dyke, a household favorite at the time. Also, musicals were an easier sell back then, and also at that time, the movie it featured cutting-edge technology. Now, if only Paul King, had fully decided to make his Wonka like Mary Poppins, because while the characters are similar, King has taken a more old-school approach, and maybe he should have pushed the edge of the envelope like Disney did with Mary Poppins. Maybe there should have been a 3D sequence in the middle of the film. You have to put your glasses on a few times. That'd be different. Look how much that helps Avatar. And insist people see the film in 4D. Install 4D in more theaters so that you can smell all the chocolates when they come on screen. This movie is full of moments that 4D really could enhance. But as I said, Warner Brothers didn't even want to invest in a marketing campaign for the film. As I also recently tweeted, if Warner Brothers had blown this movie up like Barbie on the campaign trail, turning it into a true event, it would be maybe as big as Barbie. I don't know if it would be $1 billion picture, but I think it would make a lot more than it's probably going to. It would make it, again, a true event. Rumor has it, by the way, I tweeted this and some of you were like, oh, Grace, Mattel helped pay for the Barbie promotional tour. If only there were outside Wonka money. It desperately needs it. because it really is a party. As I said, I don't actually remember any of the songs themselves, but I'm not also a musical person. But I remember the musical numbers. Oh my goodness. I remember not only the musical numbers in very intense detail, the dance routines, the costumes, the sets, but I remember how I felt when they started. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how good this is. I mean, that will be forever something I associate with seeing this movie. So I guess maybe low expectations are a good thing. But I remember each and every musical sequence, and I can't wait to see them again. As I said, I'm a Critics' Choice member, and I had a very busy week a few weeks ago where I saw 3 musicals in a row. Wonka, The Color Purple, and Wish, all in the same week. And I have to say that Warner Brothers are by far the superior musicals. They're both outstanding, and both are as good and as thrilling as seeing a live Broadway show. They were able to replicate that. You know, often you see something like this and you're like, oh, I bet the Broadway show was amazing. Wonka, by the way, was also a Broadway musical, although that's another from Warner Brothers, by the way, Warner Brothers Theatrical. And maybe they've milked Wonka a bit too much. But I thought that was very good. Christian Borle played Wonka, and I love Christian Borle. So that was a very, very good production. This is my favorite Wonka, I'll just tell you right now, by far. But I really did feel like you got a Broadway musical right in a theater near you with both of those films. So that was extraordinary. Now, Wonka, of course, was dreamed up by Roald Dahl, and King does not shy away from the darker, more adult elements of Dahl's work. This is based not only on Willy Wonka, but also apparently some of the short stories also from Dahl about the character. Wonka starts out the film homeless, which I thought was very touching to show how it can happen to anyone and to, never judge a book by its cover. I thought that was, especially today with homelessness, at least in the United States, at a record high, I thought that was wonderful to include it in the film. To introduce it to children to that concept and how it can happen to anyone. And he's quickly preyed upon by Olivia Colman and Tom Davis, who are straight out of a Charles Dickens novel or Annie the Musical. They were great. And the Chocolate Cartel is legitimately dangerous. I was like, whew, they're not messing around. But oh, how they can sing and dance. One of my favorite musical numbers. It was incredible. We'll talk about the cast in a moment. So many to highlight, but I can't even highlight them all. Everybody was good. But first, a shout out to the costume design, hair and makeup, production design, and VFX teams who bring Wonka to life. Because Wonka is a visual marvel. Wonka's store? Please, somebody build it. I can't believe it wasn't built to promote the movie in a couple of key locations. It just seems such a no-brainer. But the entire world of the movie is amazing. An absurd adventure, which you never question because the movie does such a perfect job bringing it to life. But brilliantly, the movie, written by King and his creative partner, Simon Farnaby, who has a cameo, they balance all that quirkiness with heart. While Mary Poppins was famously emotionally guarded, Chalamet's Wonka wears his heart on his sleeve. And to see such kindness celebrated today was particularly meaningful. I think it's just something that we really need. Yes, the trailers didn't do Chalamet any favors. As I said, I declared him miscast when I saw them. However, when watching the film itself and seeing the flow of his performance, the ebbs and flows, I'm really quite astonished with how good it actually is. He really is a male Mary Poppins, yet distinct in his own way, and I think that's a wonderful thing to add to pop culture. I see a place for Wonka in pop culture more than I ever did before with this movie. Chalamet's singing is serviceable, but it's helped enormously by his enthusiasm. I mean, he's no Hugh Jackman, but he really, really wants to be. Chalamet gives his performances all, and he is extremely compelling. Hugh Jackman also. If they ever want to quickly age up this Wonka, Hugh Jackman would be a phenomenal choice. I've seen Hugh Jackman live in The Music Man. What a musical, he's just a force when it comes to musical theater. All right, so also back to Chalamet with his wiry frame and small, sharp features, he really does seem like a children's illustration, particularly a Roald Dahl one, come to life. And he gets to work off some excellent foils in the movie. Keegan-Michael Key is hilarious as the chief of police. Given a surprising amount to do, this is actually a pretty big role. From singing, he gets to sing, to some great physical gags. Oh, so funny. And while all three members of the chocolate cartel do an outstanding job, Patterson Joseph is the big bad, and he is an outstanding villain. And to see such a serious villain, well, who takes himself so seriously, suddenly break into a hilarious song and dance number, oh, as I said, it was a joy to watch. And seeing the dawning of that musical number is one of my, and how far it went, is really just a memory I will always have watching this movie. Cal Elaine is also very good, and at first I felt her character was maybe too serious for the film, but once you realize that she's meant to balance out Wonka, well then they actually make a very, very good pairing, and her story is extremely moving. The movie is, of course, as I said, chock full of fun cameos, and everyone does a fantastic job, as you would expect from actors of this caliber. And then, of course, there's Hugh Grant, who's been used a lot to sell this movie, and he, of course, was one of the best things in Paddington 2. However, while he does indeed deliver here, please note that his role is quite small, and you've already seen most of it in the trailers. So he's really there to kind of throw an anchor into a potential sequel, where he's going to obviously take on a much bigger role. So yes, the hope for sequel. The movie ends, like so many movies these days, promising even bigger things to come, aka Wonka's Factory, which we briefly see, and it's incredible. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. But it's frustrating, considering how little interest there is in this movie, that we might never actually have a movie set there fully. But even if we don't get there, this isn't one of those films, even though it does throw a substantial anchor into the future, that relies on that entirely. The film does stand on its own. It's good enough to stand on its own as a delightful origin story for Willy Wonka. And maybe it'll join people's library of holiday films. It's not actually holiday-esque. I don't believe there's like any Christmas trees in it or anything, but it's about candy and they're singing and dancing. I mean, I think it fits with Christmas perfectly. I'm always looking for a new Christmas movie. I most recently added Little Women, and I'm very happy about that. Greta Gerwig's Little Women. Finally, on that note, there's been a lot of talk about the previous Hollywood adaptations, and some question as to where this new movie stands in comparison. I have a friend who thought this was another remake, by the way, and didn't even realize it was an all-new origin story. So, marketing fail in another way, Warner Brothers. I was like, no, it's like you haven't seen this. She's like, who's Charlie? How about the golden ticket? I was like, that's not this movie. And she was like, oh, maybe I will see it. So the truth is, Chalamet's Wonka isn't meant to be an early version of Gene Wilder or Johnny Depp's Wonka. Or Christian Borle's. He is an entirely new third Wonka. And personally, my favorite version of the character. And as I said, I wouldn't be mad if Hugh Jackman stepped in and did like a sequel with a little bit of an older Wonka. As a matter of fact, sorry, Timothee Chalamet, I loves you, but I don't think you have the box office juice to get this where it needs to go. And so I wouldn't give up on this. I mean, I think you have to keep Paul King because his fingerprints are all over this. I don't think you could do it without him. But I think if I stuck Wolverine in the middle there, again, you got to wear your business hat. I think we might be off to a little bit of a better situation. And that could be when Wonka gets disillusioned and edgy, like the versions that people are more familiar with. I'd love to see this version of Wonka go on that journey, emotionally and physically. And as I said, I trust Paul King to do it creatively, but business-wise, not so much. That's why I'm going to give him Hugh Jackman. Be like, all right, go work your magic, both of you. So yeah, business is hard because, as I said, I love this movie, but I think it might be another Speed Racer, another movie that I absolutely loved, and I totally got what the Wachowskis were trying to do there. It's anime come to life, but it was a total bomb, business-wise. All right, but so at least we have this. So that's my review of Wonka. I hope other people discover it. And it's now got 3 chances: theatrical, digital, and streaming. Although not many Warner Brothers movies, get discovered later on. Disney Plus is able to blow up a movie. Netflix can blow up a movie, but we've yet to see Max blow up a movie. Maybe this is it. All right, so anyway, please go see it and bring candy. All right, so because I would like to see the next chapter. All right, so that's my review of Wonka. Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.